Hello, everyone. Hello and welcome. Hello, Sharon.
Hello.
Hello, Jonathan.
Hello, Jonathan. It's an honor to have you here with us.
It
So
really
excited.
It really is an honor. I am beyond thrilled and excited for us to be interviewing Jonathan Goldman, who is a teacher of sound and also an international authority on sound healing and a pioneer in the field of harmonics. There's so much to learn from Jonathan. He is the winner of the 2011 Visionary Award for Best Alternative Health Book. And Jonathan is the director of the Sound Healers Association and president of Spirit Music Inc. in Boulder, Colorado. He is a Grammy Award nominee and he has created numerous best-selling albums. And my favorite of them is The Divine Name. It has been very impactful for me. And he is the double winner of Visionary Awards for best-selling meditation album and album of the year. Jonathan is a lecturing member of the International Society for Music Medicine, and he's dedicated his life to the path of service, helping awaken and empower others, and his ability to transform lives through sound. Welcome, Jonathan.
Welcome.
Mira and Sharon, what a blessing it is to be here with you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, thank you. As we were speaking before we hit the record button, we spoke about your vast experience and how much there is for you to share, and how much you have done for all of us, for our awakening, for our transformation, and that makes me wonder. What is your personal interest in the field of sound healing after such an adventure and a journey? What is right now, today, as we speak today, what is most exciting for you?
Well, let's just say that what is most exciting is attempting to unite a lot of the field of consciousness of our planet through sacred sound so we can shift and change and accelerate the vibratory rate of all sentient beings. No small task.
No, that's not full. Yeah, absolutely not.
In the meantime, I really enjoy like just sharing with people how that they can utilize sound for healing. I know you've been talking to some wonderful colleagues of mine who are doing brilliant work. And I guess I would probably like to simply go over a couple of points with you, because, you know, we all can say the same thing slightly different, and you'll get something a little bit out of it that's different. I'm doing a once a month sound satsang through a few organizations, and the subject this month is compassion, which is so important. Talk maybe about that in a moment. But as my wife, Andy, and I, who does it with me, because we're partners, are investigating compassion, which is something, you know, I work with Tibetan monks, and that's really huge. But every person's definition of compassion is different. And the way that they project it to ourselves is different.
Right.
So I perhaps would like to go over what I consider to be some really major important pillars of sound healing. If I may, I think you'll find them important, okay? And the first one that I know my colleagues have talked about is the fact that everything is in a state of vibration. In the beginning was the Word, and the Lord said, "Let there be light." It's biblical and it's scientific. From the electrons moving around the nucleus of an atom to planets in distant galaxies moving around their suns, they're in a state of vibration, and conceptually at least, they're creating a sound. And this goes, if you like, akin to our body, being every part of our body is in a different, if you like, state of resonant frequency. When we are in a state of, what do we say? Sound health, okay? Everything is vibrating. We're like this overall orchestra that's playing the symphony of the self. But what happens if the second violin player loses their sheet music? They're playing out of tune, out of harmony. Pretty soon, the string section is off. Pretty soon, the orchestra is off. And this is, if you like, akin to a part of our body vibrating out of ease, out of harmony. We say it's dis-ease. So the basic concept of using sound for healing is simply to give the string player back their sheet music to project the correct resonant frequency back into the body. That's at least one way. And I want you to know that this is also the basis of almost every alternative therapy. Chiropractic is based on this, acupuncture, chromotherapy, aromatherapy. I could go on, but it's just the basic idea of putting things back into its vibratory rate. So number one, that is, if you like, one of the major ways that sound can heal. Now, there are two different ways that sound affects us. The first is called psychoacoustics. This is where the sound goes into our ear, into our brain, affects our nervous system, our heart rate, our respiration, our brain waves. Very cool. Anytime we're listening to music, or even when we are hearing ourselves talk, such as now. This is, if you like, a psychoacoustic effect, and it also can be a very important aspect of healing. You know, one can use the conversational voice as a healing instrument, provided we are projecting the correct energy and intention behind it. That's the one. So it's psychoacoustics, and the other is called vibroacoustics. And vibroacoustics is where sound goes into the body, goes into our cellular level, going down to our molecules and our DNA. An example of that would be, well, sometimes when you make sound, you can do that. Or if I'm hitting a tuning fork, for example, and one way of doing it, if I put this to my ear, that would be psychoacoustic. But if I place the stem and project the sound into my body, that would be vibroacoustic. And I think it's important for people to realize there are these two major ways that sound affects us. Now, right now, a lot of science is focused on the psychoacoustic levels. They're putting people in the MRIs and seeing what the music does to them, or the sound does, where it affects them in the brain, which is great. But I think just as importantly is the aspect of vibroacoustics. And in fact, excuse me for a second. And in fact, this is not new. I'm going to give you a quote from the New York Times science section. And I remember the date, February 8th, 1988. It was not new. It was a subheadline, and it had to do with ultrasound. But check it out. Sound shaped into dazzling tool can make, break, or rearrange molecular structure. And then the next part is, and levitate objects, which then brings one into the whole mythic realm of how the pyramids were done. But if you can make, break, or rearrange molecular structure, then people say, well, what sort of conditions can sound heal? And I have seen people go, sound can heal anything. I say, sound, if you can make, break, or rearrange molecular structure, what sort of conditions conceptually cannot be healed? I say conceptually because one of our 4 pillars of sound healing is that we are all unique vibratory beings. And that, I'll ask you two, are either of you allergic to penicillin?
Yes.
Wow. So once again, if we take the 3 of us, and that's interesting. My wife is too. So if she were here, then that would be 50% of us are allergic to penicillin. But usually in a workshop, anywhere from 10 to 20% are going to be allergic to penicillin. Now, if you perceive that everything in the universe is in a state of vibration, then penicillin is a series of frequencies that for, I like to say, 80% of the people, although in our case, it would be a whole lot less, it would be healing for 80% of the people, but toxic for 20%. In our case, it would be toxic for at least 1/3 of us. And if you like, that's just a great metaphor for how we're all different, how what works for one person will not work for another person. I think this is so very, very important for us to keep in mind whenever we're working with anything, but including particularly sound, because people say, this sound cures this sound cures that. It depends on the person. Does this make sense?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, now, if the first pillar of sound healing is everything is vibration, and the third one is actually we're all unique vibratory beings, the second one is intent is powerful. And this, I think, is so important that what turns me on is that I'm beginning to work on a grand unified theory of sound healing, which came back in the 1980s, believe it or not. I got, a while ago. I got a master's degree from Lesley University in Cambridge, Massachusetts, in basically researching the uses of sound for healing. And I had a pile of papers about yo big that I was putting together. And I come from a family of doctors, father, grandfather, brother, all medical doctors, and having a pretty good left brain, and thought, oh, I'm going to put this all together, and I am going to basically be the first person who comes up with this, if you like, correlation between frequencies, organs, chakras, etc. But as I began putting it together, they didn't align. You'd have Dr. X doing a particular set of frequencies for one organ, Dr. Y using a completely different set of frequencies for the same organ. And this was long enough ago where these guys were basically sharing with me information, because I was one of the few people at the time on the planet who was interested in this. You'd get spiritual master A using a particular set of mantras, or a particular mantra for a chakra, and spiritual master B using a very different mantra. Well, I'm sitting in front of a computer. This is dating me even more. That used a DOS operating system. Perhaps you heard of that. It was a dark screen with amber letters. And this cursor is flashing on back and forth, waiting for me to start inputting information about what is what. And instead, I'm sitting in a state of deep intellectual angst going, how can this be? How can this be? This doesn't make sense. And all of a sudden, blessed be, I heard an inner voice, and the inner voice said, it is not only the frequency of the sound that creates the effect, it is also the intention of the person making and receiving the sound. And I wrote down on this, it was great, dark screen, amber letters, almost like black on gold, and it said, frequency plus intent equals healing. And I'll repeat that again. Frequency plus intent equals healing. I had a subcorollary on that, which was vocalization, making sound, plus visualization equals manifestation. That was from my book. And this is here we go, the 30th anniversary edition of Healing Sounds, which just came out in October of last year, actually. But, and perhaps I would add a third one, sound plus belief equals outcome. But I have to tell you, ladies, back then I'm talking to the scientific community. I said, have you ever thought about the importance of intentionality on the sound and this and that? And they looked at me like I was a man from another planet. And they were right. But no, they weren't supposed to know that. So, it was very, very difficult. But then you have people like Bruce Lipton doing the biology of belief, Dr. Joe Dispenza doing You Are the Placebo, Masaru Emoto and his wonderful work with water crystallization, showing how intentionality basically affects the literally vibratory aspect of structure. And this is very, very important. There's one particular picture. I'm going to make this, there's so much to share, but there's one particular picture. Dr. Emoto's work, basically he took distilled water, froze it, working with a dark field microscope. When the water was unfreezing, he would take photographs of it. And he came up with some incredible things, but one of the most, I think, stunning ones is simply, and he showed that water that had been exposed to positive, beneficial, either sounds or intentionality, looked like crystal snowflakes, totally beautiful, geometric.
Yeah.
But water that was polluted or exposed to bad thoughts, fear, anger, that type of thing, looked like mud. And there was in particular water from the Fujiwara Dam in Japan, which is a polluted dam. The water was polluted. and it looked like mud. And then he had a Buddhist priest chant the Heart Sutra from the Tibetan tradition over it for 20 minutes. And then he rephotographed it. And it looks like a pristine snowflake. So I always say to people, okay, how much of our body is water? How much of our planet is water? If we can potentially shift and change the vibratory field of water and ourselves, isn't that a little bit important? So remember, and if you like, what is sacred sound? For the most part, sacred sound is sound, and they can be mantras, they can be tones, they can be X, Y, or Z, encoded with intentionality of love, compassion, all this other stuff to create some sort of beneficial outcome. So it's like frequency plus intent equals healing. And I think that this is just so very, very important for us. So I think that we are coming more and more into a level of being really concerned with frequency. And there are a lot of people who come, oh, this frequency is good for this frequency is good for that, this whatever. I think if you have a belief that the frequency does that, it's mostly going to have that effect. It's mostly going to have that effect. I think our beliefs are that powerful. And yet I will just say that I think we have to pay attention to the physiological effects of sound. And there's so much more that one can talk about. So that unless you're able to levitate or dematerialize and walk through a wall, you need to pay attention to whatever the sound is that you're being exposed to. Is this making sense?
Absolutely. A lot of sense. Yes.
It
So-
also, yeah.
So these are things that I sort of just like to give as a, those were the three pillars. The fourth one is that silence is golden.
Yep.
What does this mean? Okay. I've really found again and again, after we work with sacred sounds, whether we're listening to it or projecting sacred sounds, that it is in the area of silence that the true shifts and change can occur through shifting and working either with your nervous system, your heart rate, respiration, or your cellular structure. If I'm going, all of a sudden, I didn't give it a chance to like shift and change, which is one of the things right now. So many things excite me, but one in particular, because I think it's so important, is the fact that about 4 or 5 years ago, my wife, Andy, and I wrote this book called The Humming Effect, which won all these different awards, and it's still a bestseller. And the reason we did this was because after 40 years of being in this field and teaching people powerful mantras, chakra resonance, frequencies, vowel sounds, harmonics, overtones, etc., a lot of people were just so, they were so fearful of making their own sound. Maybe it's because of shows like American Idol and whatnot that have made everybody, oh, you're pitchy, oh, you're out of tune, you're not a good singer. And so they wouldn't make a, no, I wouldn't want them to do that. It's a Tibetan deep voice.
Wow.
But we did teach some of those at times. But anyway, getting back to making a sound, I was sort of teasing on that one, is the fact that we didn't encounter anybody who couldn't hum. Humming was the magic sound that everybody can make. Babies, the elderly, children, everybody likes to hum. In fact, oftentimes we hum unconsciously when we're happy. So we came up with this phenomena of conscious humming. And first I want to tell you that as we're working on the book, and we're going deeper and deeper into it to the degree that understanding that in certain traditions, there's something called Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, and the Sutra 1.27 says, this is my translation of it, the original sound of creation was pranava, the humming of prana. they had to give it a name, so they called it Om. So the Om came from the hum. But still, all this really cool stuff. But at the same time, I said, people are not going to take humming seriously unless we somehow make the first chapter nothing more or less than peer-reviewed scientific and medical information on the physiological effects of humming. And we did that. And I'll just tell you a couple of different things. Reduction of heart rate, reduction of brain waves, slowing, bringing your blood pressure down, get the release of melatonin. Very cool. I'm not going to go into the physiological benefits too much. Get the release of oxytocin. And big one, you get the release of nitric oxide. Nitric oxide, which is a vasodilator, which allows the blood to move more freely throughout your body, but also nitric oxide has been shown actually through humming to be an antiviral agent. And if you do conscious humming, and I'll tell you what conscious humming is in just a second, just because it's important for everybody to try this. And read the book. It's great. It goes deeper in how to project intentionality on there and exercises. But conscious humming is simply taking some nice deep breaths, because breath is the basis of everything. If you like, breath is not only the basis of life, of course, but you can't make sound without breath, number one. And number two, humming on one note. So not humming zippity-doo-dah, but just going, and here, I'll do this for a second so you can basically hear this. I'm going to put the sound from a musician. So in other words, on one tone, so taking nice deep breath, humming on one tone, really important thing. There are no really rights or wrongs with humming, but you got to have your lips closed. If you want to have a little fun time for just a second, you ready? I want you to hum for a minute and then block your nose. Make sure your lips are closed. You ready? Try it.
It doesn't work.
I can't hum if your nose is blocked.
Ah.
It's okay if you didn't know that about the hum. You think there are other things that can be done. So you have to have your lips closed, because if you're going then if you go you can see how the Om comes from it. So you have to have your lips closed, and that creates the major nasal vibrations there. And also, bottom line, everybody's looking for we have to find our own frequency, which is great. You know what our own frequency most of the time is very close to? Our conversational speaking voice. So if you hum in a area that is comfortable for you, basically like, if I try to do something, and I can, but if I went, that's, I don't know if that even came out, but if that
We got
that didn't work for me, So once again, in the conversational voice, in the tonality, and in the comfort zone. And if you do those things and you do it 4 or 5 times, and then you basically be in silence for a minute or two, it'll be a profound experience. We like to suggest that people hum for 5 minutes, do conscious humming for 5 minutes, and then they're silent for 5 minutes. Because if we were to do this right now, I'll tell you, you would be very blissed out in just a few times, because it's that powerful. Most people have never consciously hummed. And you know how they say certain, if you like, plant medicines are gateway things. Well, the hum is a gateway sound. It opens you up to all other aspects of sound. Now, I still use the divine name in a really big way. I do that every day, etc., because you know what? I don't want to also be restricted to just one sound. But I love the hum, and I've become quite a good hummer. After about 40 years, I basically have, of doing this work, I've come to be seeing that the hum is just it's actually the most powerful vibroacoustic sound that we can make. Why is that? Because it's totally self-contained. Once again, if you do it right, then it's basically resonating here and you can project it. As soon as I open my mouth, then the sound is coming out, which is great, but it's so totally self-contained as a if you will, regulating massage. So I share these thoughts with you, just things that turn me on, because you know what? Nothing's new. A lot of people are reinventing the wheel. Anybody who's watching this, and if you've discovered something new in sound healing, blessed be. I could tell you stories about stuff that I was investigating that would, once again, acoustic levitation, man, probably was known about by the ancient Egyptians and more, as an example. So this stuff is not new, and maybe it's just simply a rediscovery.
Yeah. And I want to ask you something. When you talk about humming, do you put an intention, or you just kind of hum? Because I have memories of me being a little child, and my grandmother used to hum all the time to quiet her pain. That was her self-medication.
Yeah, that's that's one of the things, is probably the release of oxytocin, and also endorphins are generated when you hum. But yes, that actually, Sharon, is the next level of humming. First, get the vibration, then project intentionality on it. Because you know what? With a little bit, hold on for just a second. With a little bit of intentionality, I'll do this as an example. And I'll have to do this on, or you'll have to believe me. I'm not. I could make a humming sound, project it here, and with a slight variant of pitch, move it down here almost instantaneously, because my intention is there. And it's just this is too advanced for this opening thing. But play around with the hum, play around. You may find, you can use it for a headache, for a stomach ache, to help you sleep, because if all these different neurochemicals and whatnot are released, it affects the vagus nerve. And there's this whole work with the heart rate variability in the vagus nerve. I mean, not time now to talk about the importance of heart-brain coherence, but when we do World Sound Healing Day, we ask that people basically work with that aspect of gratitude and compassion projected onto the sound. I'll leave you with a last word from the woman who first initiated me in sound. She's in the angelic realms. But many years ago, when we were looking for some sort of logo for the Sound Healers Association, her husband was a well-known artist, and he drew something, and she came up with, the true sound of healing is love. Well, I thought back then it was too goofy. That was basically in 1982. The true sound of healing is love. And my book, The 7 Secrets of Sound Healing on Hay House, is dedicated to Sarah, and with that quote, the true sound of healing is love. So I'd say, and do not be mistaken that there is a particular frequency that is love. Some people may believe it, and if they need to believe that there is a frequency that is love, blessed it be. But I'm just telling you, you can take any frequency or any sound and encode it with love. I'm sure when your grandma was self-soothing you, she wasn't looking at a guitar tuner.
No.
Jonathan, I'm so tempted to ask you about using sound for levitation. One of the things that most intrigued me is exactly how the pyramids were built through using sound to mold the stone. And also, I look at walls, structures being built in South America, say Machu Picchu, and where I see these perfect giant stones perfectly fitting with one another. And I cannot help but think how sound was used to melt the stone and make it fit. I would love to hear your thoughts on it.
Real quick, just last night, I was watching the latest edition of Beyond Belief with a fellow named George Norrie on Gaiam TV. I happened to be the guest, and we were talking about acoustic levitation. And I'll share this with you, and you can answer me back, because there's a whole lot more to go into. But if you knew the secret of acoustic levitation, would you share it with other people? If you could lift huge stones and drop them wherever you wanted, there's a huge responsibility in terms of proper use
Right.
of anything. And so while we may have the power, as my friend Spider-Man said, with great power comes great responsibility.
Right, absolutely. It's understated. And I have a question too, more of like a question / request. World Sound Healing Day.
Yes.
Is there a way that we can hone in or log in or connect via Zoom? My idea, which I'm sure you had it long before me, is to have some time during that day, or maybe a couple of times during that day, where as many people as we can could put the intention for, world peace or whatever it is, the best, the highest love to be spread around the world. And so my question is, I'm sure you've thought about it.
Well,
So,
we've manifested that.
okay.
If you go to look, my website is healingsounds.com. And I invite everyone to go there. But I have, if you like, founded World Sound Healing Day, but it's a totally different thing. And we have over 200 different events happening throughout the planet where people do all sorts of things. And you can go to worldsoundhealingday.org right now when we get off this interview, and you can check it out because stuff is still up there. And then we basically retire stuff for a while. And we have also an online sacred sound temple called the Temple of Sacred Sound. And you can go there and you can tone. So this is all stuff. Once again, I love that you thought about this, and we were able to begin to manifest this when Zoom and other platforms made virtual situations, manifest. So about 2 or 3 years ago is when this stuff really became virtual. Before that, it's just people doing their different things. And now, I mean, check out what's going on. I think you'll find it interesting. And I like to say that every day should be World Sound Healing Day. Because you know what? One of the things that occurs, once again, we don't have enough time for this, but we'll just share this with you. You don't need a very large percentage of the world to be making sound coupled with meditation in order to create shifts and changes. Just yesterday, I actually made available from the Global Consciousness Project a graph of that day. And the Global Consciousness Project basically uses random number generators, and they find that when events of high compassion, not high excitement like the Super Bowl, but events of high compassion occur, that, see, normally random number generators basically create a 0 or a 1, kind of like flipping a coin. And if you were to graph that, 50 zeros, 51 straight line. But when events of high compassion occur, all of a sudden, it's not such a straight line. And it can look like a mountain range, which is what World Sound Healing Day and a lot of other global events happen. So everybody, we heal the planet, we heal ourselves. We heal ourselves and we heal the planet. We can make a difference and we have a choice.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh my God, we're gonna say it out in a phrase right on top of this interview, right? It's
Great.
so huge, 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 huge. Can you say that again?
Sure. That's actually part of a song, but that's that I've used. But we heal the planet. We heal ourselves. We heal ourselves, and we heal the planet. We can make a difference, and we have a choice.
Brilliant.
I want to cry. So deep. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And that is such a perfect way to end this interview. We'll share all of that with people and all the resources you mentioned. What is your the way that you would like people to connect with you and to connect with you? Is it on social media? Is it through any of the events that you teach?
Well, I have a fairly big Facebook fan page, but basically go to the Healing Sounds website. It's phenomenal. It was designed, there's so much freebie stuff there for people to get, number one. Number two, lots of great information, lots of, great tools for transformation as well, if you want, books, recordings, etc. But just, it was designed, and it's actually an award-winning website as well, because my purpose, once again, is to help awaken people to the power of sound to heal and transform. And a website is a great way to assist that.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Blessings.
Everything that you do. Many blessings to you.